Hello, everybody. Welcome to this quick little episode of Nerd Crap. So, today, I just learned about the new Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4. And it, just came out. And this is huge, and I want to talk about it, okay? So, I'm just going to open another tab, blah, 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 do some more stuff, go to the raspberrypi.org again. Okay. So, this is the Raspberry Pi 4. Alright? It has two micro HDMI ports supporting up to two 4K displays, USB-C power. It has an ARM A72 processor. You can either get 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes of RAM on this small little thing, gigabit Ethernet, USB 3, and USB 2.0. Now, the price ranges for between how much RAM you want to get. 8 gigabyte can cost up to $75, depending on who you get it from. Anyway, so this is the basic Raspberry Pi 4. All right, simple, pretty powerful. I have one. I really like it. Okay, this is the CM4 Compute Module 4. I will get into that in a minute. But before, they had the Compute Module 3. And this is the Compute Module 3 Plus. This only has a less powerful A53 ARM 53 processor. It's still a 64-bit processor, blah, blah, blah. This is for computer nerds and kind of stuff. It only has 1 gig of RAM, though. You can get eMMC storage on it, but then this went to connected to a developer board. And this developer board, well, it didn't have as many features as this new Raspberry Pi Compute Module. I'm going to close out of this tab right here. All right. And this doesn't have any onboard Wi-Fi or anything. It did have onboard eMMC memory, and it didn't have any onboard Wi-Fi, onboard Bluetooth, or Ethernet. But the Compute Module 4 brings all that. You can get 8 gigs of RAM. It comes with all the versions of the boards you can get. By the way, there are over 32 different board variants of this. Just between all the different options you can get with it. So it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, Ethernet, 8 gigs, up to 8 gigs of RAM, and up to 32 gigabytes of onboard eMMC storage. And it still has that ARM Cortex A72 processor right here. Dual video output. Alright, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's just the board itself. This is meant to connect to its development board. Okay, here's a previous Compute Module I/O developer board. It had this SODIMM slot, so it was like a RAM card kind of thing. Like laptop kind of RAM design. Outdated, not very many ports. Sure, you got a ton of Gpio pins. You got 2 camera connectors and 2 display outputs, or DSI display outputs, compared to the 1 HDMI. But where is it? Here's this board. This board, oh man, so many features. As you can see, the Raspberry Pi sits on top of these two areas. These two areas right around here, right there, and right there where my cursor is. It snaps on top, great. Now you get 2 HDMI outputs. You get 2 camera inputs and 2 DSI connectors. All right, you get a barrel jack for power. You have a micro SD slot. You have onboard USB 2, and you have that gigabit Ethernet port. And then over here you have I think it's PCI 2.0. So I don't think it's PCIe, but it's a 1X slot. But if we go down to the specifications, PCIe Gen 2 by 1 socket. So it's not by 16 or by 8, so you can't connect a graphics card to it, unfortunately. Well, you could in theory, but you have to be able to find the drivers to be able to do that. You have to find the drivers to be able to connect it to each other, or connect it, and for it to work off the Raspberry Pi. Now you notice here it does not have a USB 3 port. That's because they gave up the USB 3 for this blank PCIe Gen 2 slot. So then you could add, if you wanted to, a USB 3.0 card, or other cards like a old parallel port card, or another item you could add would be an audio card. So there's a lot more expandability here. And here you have the Gpio pins. Also, I'm not really sure what this part right here is for. It's a bit confusing. Oh, and there's a micro USB port. I'm not really sure if that's for power. And then I'm not really sure what these ports up here are for. But the compute module sits on top. It does come. There is a connector to add an external antenna to get better Wi-Fi signals. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff here, and it is insane, and I really want it. So here are the official specs: 2 full-size HDMI 2.0 connectors, 2 USB 2.0, gigabit Ethernet, micro USB socket for updating compute module 4. Okay. Micro SD card socket for compute module 4 Lite without eMMC variants. PCIe Gen 2 Y1 socket. Standard fan connector. Oh, I did not know that. 2 MIPI DSI display FPC connectors, 22 pin 0.5 millimeter pitch cable. I'm not really sure what all that means. You can recite that to your friends to make you sound smart. And then it's just 2 CSI camera connectors, standard Raspberry Pi hat connectors, or hardware on top connectors. That's what I think that might be what this is for. Maybe this one, I don't know. But then this is GPIO pins. So you can also put hats on top of that. So that's cool. And then standard Raspberry Pi hat, real-time clock with battery socket and ability to wake compute module. Oh. This opens up a whole new world of capabilities. Okay, so real-time clock, and you can wake up the computer with that. Okay, so this probably allows you to add a turn on, like a shutdown or sleep button to your Raspberry Pi 4 that doesn't have that. Which means when I first heard about it this morning, I was blown away, because I realized that with this compute module right here, I've been trying to make a Raspberry Pi laptop on 3 separate occasions, but stuff keeps breaking before I can get it all assembled. But with this, it makes it so much easier, because I don't have to have this really thick case to be able to have all the features I want and then be able to connect up screens or USB ports. No. I could take this. If I could get a custom PCB, you can do that. There are a couple of websites and companies. One of them is JLC PCB, where you can upload your design files and then order it, and they'll send it to you. So if you could get that, you could get this, plug it in, and then have all your just soldered connector points, and then you just solder everything, and it becomes a thin board, which means you can make a Raspberry Pi ultralight, or like a thin Raspberry Pi board. Cooling would be another issue for another time, but then you could get, depending on how big you want to make it, you could have massive amounts of battery life. Now, there's not a whole lot you could do with it. Like, it'd be mostly for, hey, you want to type up some Word documents? Okay. Oh, you want to do programming? Sure, I'm here to help. You want to surf the internet? I can do that. How about some music? Possible. You know, there are also Android variants for the Raspberry Pi that you can install, and there's a lot of stuff. There's so much you can do with this. Anyway, back to the specs and stuff. So, real-time clock, which means if you want, you could have it set up so then once you close the top, it could just fall asleep, or just shut down. You open it back up, or picks up where it either reboots or just wakes up. Various jumpers to disable specific features. Example, wireless connectivity, EEPROM writing. Okay, I'm not really sure what an EEPROM is. I've heard the term been thrown around, but I'm not really sure what it is. I need to do more research into that. But holy moly, I had to make a video on this because, oh yeah, here's the antenna that connects to the board to get better Wi-Fi signal, which means you could just connect it. And dang, but this board won't function standalone. You need to have the development board or another board to be able to power it on and be able to use all of the features. So this design, I'm going to say, isn't quite as cool as this. Or this. It doesn't look quite as cool. But, dang, it is pretty powerful for how small it is. Oh, I just had another big brain wave. Okay, I'm not really sure. Oh, I think that's just the solder points for this Wi-Fi chip. Huh. Somebody could make a phone with this. You could make a Raspberry Pi phone with this if you really wanted to. In theory, it would be a pretty big one. But, dang, you could, in theory, do it, and it would be sick. Dang, I really want this now. Just the amount of things you could do with it. 8 gigs of RAM, 32 gigabytes of onboard storage, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, quad-core processor, and it's designed to run Linux. Wow, well, I want that. Well, guys. Okay, so that was the development board thing, specs. Those previous specs. Here's the actual specification for the actual Raspberry Pi processor board. Broadcom BCM 2711 quad-core Cortex A72 ARM V8 64-bit SoC 1.5 gigahertz. That's just the processor. H.265 HEVC up to 4K 60 frames 60 hertz decode up to 100 what? Okay, I don't know. 1080p 30 frames per second encode. Okay, so these are different, the video decoding and encoding. The Raspberry Pi 4, it doesn't really do well with 4K video playback, and say like that's just what it's saying for that's the top of the limit for the processor. OpenGL ES 3.0 graphics. Okay, cool. Options for 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes, or 8 gigabytes LPDDR4 3200 megahertz SD-RAM, depending on variant. So these are just the 1, 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes. Those are different, the different models you can get. But look, DDR4 RAM at 3200 megahertz. That's cool. Options for OGB Lite. I'm not really sure what OGB is. 8 gigabytes. Hold on, wait. Alright, never mind. Options for Lite, there's Lite, which means it doesn't have onboard eMMC storage. You can get it with 8 gigabytes, 16, or 32 gigabytes eMMC flash memory, depending on variant, of course. Options for fully certified radio module, such as 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, IE or IEEE 802.11 B/G/N/AC wireless Bluetooth 5.0 BLE. I'm just reading what's on the website, but this all boils down to, it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and then onboard electronic switch to select either external or PCB trace antenna. So it has an onboard antenna, but you can get that extra antenna for better connectivity. So just in this antenna that plugs directly onto the board. So then this little triangle here, that's the onboard antenna, but then this little part here connects directly to this antenna, so you could get better Wi-Fi. And if you were to make a laptop with this, or a phone, you can just have this like antenna sticking out, and it's really cool. It can connect to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth pretty well. So I would probably, it's like $5-10. If you were to get this, I would definitely get this, just because, well, better. And then these are just the specs that aren't really that impressive. Well, actually, no, they're pretty good. 2400 and 2500 megahertz, 5100 to 5800 megahertz. Bandwidth, 100 to 700 megahertz. Not really sure what this means, but that's just some cool stuff. So I would definitely buy this. Well, this isn't really made to be just your, it's not made to be buy it, plug it in, put it on your computer, put it on your desktop as your computer. Oh, hey, that's cool. No, this is actually really meant for development stuff. Like, attaching, probably for, example, like, hey, what if you wanted, the heck? Oh, that's weird. Okay, like what if you wanted to add a graphics card to it? Currently, you can't add a graphics card to it. As I said earlier, because well, you could in theory if you could get the drivers, but it's probably not recommended. Anyway, it's more development stuff like, hey, I need more expandability. Like, I need more cameras. Okay, great. Why do you need more cameras, for example? I don't know. That's up to you. Maybe AI image recognition, or making a higher resolution camera stuff. I don't know. That's up to for you to decide. And then you have all sorts of different storage options. And then, hey, I need 2 displays. Okay. I need networking. All right, I can do that. It's for development. Like, hey, I need more expandability for this project. Like, whether it be controlling servo motors or AI training, which I really wouldn't recommend using this for training AI networks. But you could, in theory, do it. It would just take a very long time, depending on what you're doing. You know, but this isn't really for the everyday user. That would be for a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B, just this one right here. If you want a Raspberry Pi, I suggest getting this. It has the same specs as the other one, except it already has built-in USB 3. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching this video. This is I just kind of got excited and wanted to make this video. But please like and subscribe to the channel. Please join our Discord, and I think I'll figure out how to put that in the description. If I can't, then I'll get someone else. I'll get someone else to do it who knows how to do that. And that's about it. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you around.